Hi everyone, warm welcome to this Starling webinar on the no deforestation verification. We'll just wait a couple minutes to allow people to join, and then we'll kick off this session. Thank you. Okay, about 80 people. I suggest we start. So again, a very warm welcome from my side to this Starling webinar on no deforestation verification. I'm David Golden. I'm the project manager on Starling on Airbus side. Today we'll talk about how Starling supports companies addressing their non-deforestation commitments, as well as how they navigate through certain regulations such as the European Union deforestation-free regulation, best known as EUDR. So to do that with me today, I've got 4 speakers. I'll introduce them right away. So I've got Elizabeth Langlois with me. So Elizabeth, you're a Starling sales manager for Airbus. We have Nadja Batista. Thank you very much for joining. Nadja, you're the business development manager at Earthworm Foundation. So both of you will explain or remind what the Starling service is and the respective roles of Airbus and Earthworm Foundation in the Starling partnership and Starling adventure. So thank you for joining. We're also welcoming Renzo Verne, who's a sustainability director at Cocoasource. Hi, Renzo. Thanks for joining. Renzo, you will give us your insights on EUDR and what EUDR means to you and your organization, and how you approach this regulation, as well as your non-deforestation commitments, and how Starling is helping you in that journey. And then we're welcoming Molly. Hi, Molly. So Molly Harrigan, you're the senior manager for responsible sourcing at the Hershey company. So Molly, you will explain a little bit on your deforestation commitment, no deforestation commitment journey, starting in the palm oil industry and then expanding to other forest risk commodities. So quite a packed agenda. At the end of the presentations, there will be a Q&A sessions. So while the speakers are presenting, feel free to use the questions box at the bottom right-hand corner, if I'm not mistaken. You can raise any questions you have, and at the end of the Q&A, we will go through as many questions as possible. Okay, so without further ado, I will leave the floor to Elizabeth, who will talk a little bit more about the Starling service.
Just waiting for the slides to change.
If they arrive.
Well, in the meantime, I'll just introduce myself. So my name is Elizabeth Langlois, and as David said, I am one of the sales managers at Airbus Defence and Space working on Starling. So Starling is a solution, what we call a remote sensing solution, that uses satellite imagery and expertise in order to help companies and various actors deliver on their sustainability commitments, such as no deforestation, carbon accounting, forest positive projects, etc. So Starling started off back in 2016. So we are really a partnership between Airbus Defence and Space. We're usually better known for our aeroplanes, but we are also a very important worldwide satellite operator and developer. And we create a wide range of solutions using our expertise and our satellite imagery. And we have partnered with the Earthworm Foundation. So Nadja will go a little bit more into detail about that. And they really help bring Starling alive with this joint venture that we created together. Can you move?
Yeah, sure.
So since 2016, we've really branched out to work with a huge number of companies that are really keen on ensuring no deforestation all across their supply chains. So on your screen, you see a few examples of actors that we work with all across the supply chain. We work with traders, we work with brands, and we are continuously expanding, especially at the moment with the EUDR being such a hot topic and with many more actors in these industries who are looking to find a solution to comply with the regulation. So this is just an overall image so that you can understand quite how satellite imagery and satellites, how can this have a real impact on the ground. So this is an example of a satellite image that was taken using Airbus's satellite Pléiades-Néo. Pléiades-Néo is 30 centimeter resolution. So to give you a little bit more of an understanding of what 30 centimeter resolution actually shows, David, could you move? Mm-hmm. There, you can see really what kind of detail this shows. So you can see the individual trees that have been felled. The pictures, both of the pictures here that have been zoomed in, you can really see alerts that have been flagged using Starling, so deforestation alerts. On the left, you can really see the tree patterns, the line defects. Being able to use such high resolution imagery really helps us to accurately identify deforestation and forest degradation, as well as differentiate between land cover classes in the specific context of the EUDR, differentiating between primary forest, planted forest, etc., to ensure that there are as little as possible of any false negatives or false positives. For the EUDR, so as I said before, we started Starling back in 2016, way before the EUDR was even in talks, but we have really geared up to support companies comply with this new legislation, which I'd like to remind you, for large businesses, the deadline is at the end of this year, so 31st of December of 2024, to ensure that there has not been any deforestation occurring in your supply chains after the cutoff date of 1st of January 2021. So using satellite imagery, we're really able to check for deforestation in important supply chains when we are talking about hundreds of thousands sometimes of polygons, help these companies understand their supply chain, which is often very complicated, and for a number of various commodities. So this could be palm oil, cocoa, coffee, pulp and paper, timber, rubber, etc., that all have very different dynamics and also very different environments. So it's very important to have a solution that depends on all of these environments and is capable of understanding, adapting to each of them, and to accurately detect deforestation and forest degradation. So on the screen here, you can see how Starling is able to flag deforestation alerts throughout time, identify the plot of production as well as the mill it might be associated to. If you don't mind moving to the next slide. So on your screen here, you see an example of what we see on the Starling platform. So if you think about it, in order to detect deforestation, first of all, the key thing is to know where forest is in the first place. So being able to create what we call base maps, so land cover base maps, to have an understanding of what is land cover, where are plantations, where are the mills, being able to embed information and accurately detect land cover changes throughout the time. If you can move. Here you see the deforestation alerts. If you see the red and pinkish polygons further to your right, so we're looking at the monitoring alerts, so the deforestation alerts that were flagged by Starling. The monitoring period here being from 2016 to the end of 2023. If I move then to the following slide and shift the monitoring period to what is interesting for us for the EUDR, so at the cutoff date that I mentioned of the 1st of January 2021 up to late 2023 here, you see a reduction in the number of alerts. These alerts are in scope of the EUDR and should be considered by nearby farmers. So here in this particular case, the blue polygons that you see are sourcing boundaries. So while the deforestation alerts do not intersect any of these sourcing boundaries, Starling is able to flag a risk in order for the farmers, for the brands, for the suppliers of these specific industries to ensure that the risk of deforestation is contained. With this, I would like to give the chance for Nadja from the Earthworm Foundation to talk a little bit more about what we do and about our partnership and what makes Starling perfect for EUDR compliance.
Perfect. Thank you, Elizabeth. Hi, everyone. So just to introduce myself briefly, my name is Nadja Batista, and I work as a business development manager for the Earthworm Foundation for the Starling solution. So just in a super nutshell, quickly first introduce what we do at Earthworm Foundation. So we are a non-for-profit organization created in 1999. So we are celebrating 25 years of existence this year. We work across 5 continents, having offices in more than 15 countries. And we have as well been working so far already with more than 100 members, companies, clients, and donors, mostly coming from the agricultural commodity space. How we work, basically, we work hand in hand always with companies, businesses, to tackle the social and environmental issue they are facing in their supply chain and try to co-build, co-shape, co-design solution together to be able to address environmental issues such as deforestation, that's the theme of today, and as well social issues such as working in terms of labor rights, human rights, and as well assess some activities with the communities that are surrounding forests, for example. Our 2 main axes of work is really protection of forests and as well initiatives and activity in soils that we work quite often. One of our biggest assets is the fact that 80% of our staff is based in the field. So it means working on the ground in different countries, different regions, having a really good knowledge of all the specificities of these countries, building strong relationship with local stakeholders, local customers, local suppliers. That is really helpful for our work and for our work as well with Airbus. Next slide, please.
Yeah, need your help. We work better with satellites 400 kilometers.
No problem at all. Thank you, David. So what is interesting for us in Starling? So first, the journey with Airbus to co-develop Starling started back in 2016, as stated by Elizabeth. And at that time, we were working more on the palm oil. So our expertise started on the palm oil. And we were supporting companies to assess and address deforestation in the palm oil industry, and now we are really working in different commodities such as cacao, pulp and paper, and others. But what is really interesting for us, Earthworm Foundation perspective to use Starling and why we use it, it's really its capacity to transform the supply chains we are working on. So, for example, Starling is able to bring transparency to the supply chain of the customer, because to be able to the light of the supply chain of each customer to cross-check it with the deforestation alerts that we have been receiving from the Starling platform, we need to provide information such as traceability to plantation, traceability to mill, traceability to corporate, traceability to farm. So it means one big impact that we are bringing as well is transparency into the supply chain of customer, because they are able to provide this kind of information. One other big aspect as well that Starling is bringing to us and into the transformation, I would say, that they're bringing to the supply chain is the fact that the companies are able to pursue their commitments in terms of no deforestation and sustainability by the fact of receiving what we call deforestation scores throughout the years, making the possibility as well to follow and do the progress of those scores through the report that we are providing, meaning that you can report back to your internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, and communicate on how you have been progressing and reaching more and more closely the commitments that you want to reach in terms of sustainability. One big impact as well that Starling is bringing to supply chain is the fact that after having identified risky suppliers in deforestation, because deforestation has been flagged, we are able to engage with these local suppliers thanks to our team that are in the ground worldwide, and really start as well driving changes with those suppliers in their practices of planting, for example, palm oil. We will teach them as well how to plant and diversify the plantation. So this is as well another big impact will mean. We do help as well companies to apply the Starling data beyond the deforestation. That's what we say here by including identifying risk and forest conservation opportunity. It's another way of transforming as well with the supply chain, by meaning that we are working as well on the sourcing region of those companies with those suppliers that have been flagged with deforestation, making sure that we are as well transforming that region and improving the condition of those regions. Next slide, please. Thank you. And how we do that? So it's basically we help businesses to navigate the data. Thanks to our team at Earthsome, we have really diversified expertise behind our team, coming from geographic information system specialists, data specialists, but as well commodity specialists, country specialists that are behind all our reports and being able to input their knowledge, local knowledge behind the report that we are providing by making what I like to say, by making the data speak. So it means that we can extract the data from the Starling platform, and with all this knowledge and all this expertise behind, we are able to provide you concrete reports, giving recommendation and addressing as well identified deforestation and future deforestation. So we'll give concrete action to be taken with the suppliers that have been identified with deforestation, for example. The type of recommendation that we can provide is training, having a training, explaining them, capacity building as well to explain what is deforestation, how is it, how to address deforestation, how to address as well data, how to deal with data that we are providing, what kind of data need to be provided to us, Earthsome, and to the customer, so that we are able to use it on the Starling platform as well. Next slide, please. So this is really quickly, because I know that I'm already over time. So the evolution of our deliveries. So I've been talking about the report, but as the industry evolves, so do our deliveries as well. More and more now we are working towards a more agile reporting with dashboards providing KPIs that are easy to access. I know that Molly will illustrate that a bit after, so I will leave those details to Molly from Hershey after. But we do as well, one of the evolution now is to assess the EUDR. So we do a report on how the company is basically prepared for the upcoming EUDR, identifying the gaps and helping as well with supply engagement. By engaging together with the supplier, together with the customer, we engage locally, and we are able to say, okay, you should invest more time on this. There is an issue, there is a deforestation that has been identified with that suppliers. We can help you as well here to engage and try to solve the issue. So that's for me. That's it for me. Thank you very much. Up to you, David.
Thank you, Nadja. Thank you, Elizabeth. So I can see there's already some questions on the different layers that we're using in the Starling service. We'll come to that right at the end of the presentations. Now, what we plan was to have Nadja have a better understanding of the Starling service itself, is to hear from some of its users. So we have the chance to have first Renzo Verne from Cocoasource. So Renzo, you agreed to share a little bit on your EUDR journey, how you are understanding this regulation, how this applies to your organization. So if you could share a little bit on that, that would be great. And also how remote sensing services such as Starling is supporting you, is helping you navigating through this regulation. The floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, David, and hello to everybody. So I'll just quickly introduce myself and the organization I represent. So I'm Renzo Verne, and I work as the Sustainability Director at Cocoasource. And we can already pass to the next slide. And I guess as Cocoasource, maybe we're not a name, basically a household name, like an Airbus or a Hershey. So I'll just quickly introduce who we are and why remote sensing technology like Starling is relevant for us, especially as it relates to this EUDR legislation, which is now coming online very soon. So Cocoasource, we're a trading company primarily focused on cocoa. And our approach is not to be just doing, let's say, opportunistic transactional ad hoc trades. Our approach is to be really anchored at origin and creating partnerships with our supply base. So our head of trade operations are in Switzerland. That's where I'm based. But I'd say really the heart of our operations are throughout the African continent. So we have 6 sourcing offices, so throughout West Africa and East Africa. And the idea is really to create partnerships with the supplying cooperatives and looking to connect these cooperatives to final off-takers who can be processors, or they can be chocolatiers, throughout Europe, not only European market though, also North America and Asia as well. So clients that are looking really to be connected to these specific cooperatives and farmers, and to let's say create a real partnership in the long term with these specific origins. You can go to the next slide, please. And then in terms of this EUDR legislation, which Naja was mentioning, and it was introduced by the Airbus team as well. In a nutshell, as a trading company, so as an operator in a supply chain, we must be able to demonstrate that the cocoa that we're bringing in onto the European territory is not associated to deforestation after the cutoff date of end of 2020. And so here, just there's lots of detail here, but I'll just give a quick overview of what us as a company who is subject of the EUDR, what we're doing to prepare ourselves and how remote sensing fits into it. And so, as I mentioned before, we have these 6 sourcing countries at 6 sourcing companies at origin throughout West and East Africa. And the reality is that for this legislation, we need to create, and I'm talking here about the entire cocoa industry, the coffee industry, the rubber industry, the soy industry, and a few other industries that are subject of EUDR. We have to create real visibility geospatially about where the raw materials are originating from. It gets a bit into detail now, but in a nutshell, what us as a company are going for is really that the GPS polygon maps of every single farm that we're connected to in the supply chain. The reality is that is something that we've been creating for a long time now as Cocoasource, given the long-term links we have to some of our cooperative partners and to some of our end clients that we've been continuously working with for many years. But the reality is that that's not complete for all of our operations. And I think the same can be said for the wider industry. So we've really had to take a look and see, okay, how do we prepare ourselves for this legislation? And the way we're approaching it is really looking sourcing entity by sourcing entity and creating these basically a EUDR action plan for each one of our origins. So it's really about, and each one of them is at a different level of maturity, let's say, but it's really about first mapping out the supply chain. So stating, okay, who are our supply chain partners, who are our suppliers in each one of these countries, and how is that specific supply chain organized, let's say. So really getting it on paper and being very clear about it. A lot of times this data or this information is something that exists, let's say, in the minds of our team on the ground and in the heads of the real supply chain operators or sourcers. But we really have to work to formalize this. So it's getting that really clear, and then working with each one of the cooperative partners to consolidate the full farmer register. So who are all of the farmers that are part of each of the cooperatives that we work with. And then there's the whole geospatial part is, okay, where do we have this information about the farm polygons and where do we not have it? And where we don't have it, what's our plan, what's our approach to be building up that traceability and to complete that polygon mapping. I don't see the screen of the webinar because I'm sharing my screen, but just shout if anything. I'll just continue going. Just have
good. We see everything well, Renzo.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see you. Thanks for keeping up while we were reconnecting.
Okay, you guys are back.
We can see your screen.
Great. So then, yeah, for each one of these sourcing companies, the way we're then going to be structuring, we are already structuring the data for EUDR is looking at each first point of aggregation, which is generally speaking in the world of cocoa, a cooperative. So for each one of these cooperatives in our supply chain, we have more or less 45 of these, more or less 60,000 farmers associated to these. So for each cooperative, we're creating this folder or dossier, which is going to consist of all of the relevant risk assessments, due diligence process, traceability information. We're looking to, and we are digitalizing all of this traceability information. The reality is that we're agnostic onto the exact tool. We know as a facilitator in the supply chain, we have to be flexible because there is traceability information that exists in many different formats and different tools. What's important for us is that information exists and it's being able to get communicated along the supply chain. Then when it comes to, let's say, the satellite monitoring, that's clearly a very critical part of the EUDR, and that's how we make the link to a player like Starling. Is as we build this full traceability information, how do we plug that into this remote sensing tool to be able to generate the analysis that allows us to see a bit what Nadia was showing before in these reports is where do we have any issues and where are we okay? And where there are issues, and we have to think about, okay, what do we do now in order to address this? And then, yeah, the rest of it is maybe a bit kind of add-on information, but yeah, we're looking to, we are centralizing all of this traceability data. We're then linking that up to all of our trade information. So all of the purchases that we make as a trader and all of the deliveries that we're making to the end clients, we have to be able to link all of that kind of physical transactional data to the upstream traceability data and the satellite monitoring. And we're following very closely the developments of the EUDR portal for the European Union's portal for the EUDR, because we're ultimately going to have to be uploading all of this information onto the system. So that's just a bit of a high-level overview. There's lots more things going on, lots more details, but that's just kind of an overview of how we're approaching the question of EUDR Cocoasource. So
Thank you, Renzo. Thank you very much for this very clear snapshot of your approach to EUDR. We'll move on to Molly. Can you hear me, Molly?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Great. So now we're moving on to your part. If I will just change the slide. So yes, if you could elaborate a bit on your journey on non-deforestation commitment, because you started this quite a while ago, so you can reflect on how it went, and starting in the palm oil industry and then moving on to other commodities.
Excellent. Yes, thanks. And hello, everyone. My name is Molly Harrigan. I'm with the Hershey company. I'm on our responsible sourcing team, which sits within our procurement function. And yes, as David said, I've had the pleasure of working for quite a long time with the Earthworm team in particular. And then over the last few years, as we pulled in Starling to our broader deforestation-free strategy, have gotten to interact quite a bit with the Airbus team. So pleased to share how we are working on deforestation-free strategy within palm, and then the expansion, and really how Starling fits into that. So do you mind going to the next slide, please? A nice timeline, somewhat in chronological order, but just to share our journey, because I appreciate, David, you said that it's been a long time. On one hand, I feel like it's probably not been that long, but time goes quickly. So just to share, Hershey did for the palm sector put our first no deforestation, no peat, no exploitation policy in place back in 2014. That was before my time with Hershey. But at that time was really when we started engaging with Earthworm Foundation, and do have a longstanding partnership there, broadly looking at supplier engagement and investments in landscape and transformation work in our palm sourcing regions. But when I did join the team around the 2019-2020 period, had the opportunity to really go back and reflect and update our responsible palm sourcing policy. Over every year, the sustainability industry continues to evolve, and expectations and strengthening for assurance, et cetera. So we updated our policy, bringing it more in line with what I would say was evolving industry expectations. And as part of that, I think really strengthened our language around protecting high carbon stock forests, high conservation value areas, and ultimately, not necessarily within the policy, but around that, articulated our aim to achieve a deforestation-free palm oil supply chain by 2025. And this was, at that point, a standalone commitment outside of a broader deforestation policy. And I think all of us are probably quite aware it's great to have a policy, it's great to articulate a commitment, and then you have to go actually figure out the action and the work plan to go achieve it. And this is really where all of our work between Earthworm and the Airbus team using the Starling solution comes into play. Nadia, I really appreciated you sharing some of the visuals of sort of where the Starling deforestation verification has gone from back around 2020-21 timeframe versus where we're trying to go today, with moving towards more of an agile process and flow. But so exactly back in the day, and I'll highlight a little bit more of some of the things we were considering along the way. But at the start, we were really doing sort of, I would say, bite-sized chunks. This was very much a learning opportunity for us, understanding how do we bring in the Starling data through the Earthworm team translating for this. And we started also wanting to bring our suppliers up to speed in this conversation. It wasn't something that we had really built our muscle around in terms of engaging with them. So we started really with doing quarterly reports for our highest volume suppliers, where we would prioritize the 6 highest priority deforestation alerts within the supply chain, and trying to engage in back and forth, providing evidence or traceability data where possible to close those alerts. And then for our other palm suppliers, more doing an annual view and engagement around deforestation. So that was a good starting point. It was a ton of lessons learned for our team to really understand what type of evidence is required. How do we even talk to our suppliers about this, especially if they use a different type of reporting methodology or potentially a different service provider. So just getting over the hump of understanding what could be shared back and forth. Great starting point, and we'll get there a little bit later. Also do want to highlight in 2022, as Nadia had even mentioned on one of her slides, Starling allows for visibility, not just of the deforestation that you might need to go monitor and check that has happened, but also how do we identify potential risks or at-risk sourcing boundaries for the future. So in 2022, we did do an assessment for 2 landscapes in our broader sourcing footprint to just understand potential at-risk areas for palm expansion, which did actually lead into Hershey last year determining to move forward with a forest conservation project in Indonesia that also has the benefit of having broader Starling monitoring happening all the time to make sure that indeed we are helping keep those forests standing, that conservation efforts are being upheld. But then back to more of our progress towards our commitment and really going towards deforestation monitoring. We realized over the course of time that the quarterly reports, the annual reports were a good start, but we needed to move more quickly. We needed to take action. Our suppliers were really eager to engage and have a back and forth. Sometimes the priority alerts we flagged were not the ones that they were necessarily focusing on or working on. So with the earthworm team, we started understanding how could we do a higher touch engagement where they were working with a lot of the suppliers behind the scenes, looking through a whole host of deforestation alerts that might have been flagged by the Starling platform that could potentially some easier to close because indeed, as you saw on Nadia's slide, it's not always that there's actually a deforestation happening. Sometimes it's that we just don't have conclusive evidence of traceability to plantation data. Maybe the boundaries weren't exactly for the palm plantation. Maybe they weren't correct, or there's a new map that exists. So were there opportunities for us to move the needle more quickly through quicker engagement with suppliers, really led by the earthworm team, helping facilitate the technical to the actual day-to-day business operations and exchange conversation. And that's where we've really started going towards now, which has been a huge lift. Also, so that Hershey is not necessarily slowing down by being the liaison, passing along data back and forth, but really having earthworm in the mix. And then we're really excited because exactly as was shared, trying to understand how do we continue to bring this data to life as quickly as possible, bring it to our suppliers as quickly as possible for decision-making and action. So moving more towards dashboarding, which I think all of us on the day-to-day, there's so much data that exists, but how do you really bring it to life in quick business decisions and actions so we can actually have a positive impact? So that's a high-level view of where we started and where we are today. If you don't mind flipping to the next slide, I'll just do a quick synopsis of our challenges and key learnings, some of which have been alluded to in this slide.
It's coming.
Perfect. So as you can see here, bucket 1, resourcing and prioritizing action. As I mentioned, where we started, we really had a lot of opportunities to learn and take this in. It was very much focused on our Hershey being very much a part of the conversation and going back and forth with suppliers, with earthworm on one side helping us, suppliers delivering data to us on another side. Again, a really important grounding starting point for us. But actually, when we're talking about really wanting to make impact, we knew we had to evolve how we were working. And as I already mentioned, have a new, faster touch base with earthworm very much involved in those supplier conversations. Then for the second part, the reporting alignment versus deforestation alerts, again, spot on with Nadia's one graphic where she showed percentage in green versus percentages in red or yellow from that pie chart. So just to share, we publicly report our deforestation-free palm volumes within our supply chain and our ESG report. When we started publishing this, we were around 51% in 2021. Our 2023 ESG report that just came out is at 63%. Some of you might think that that's maybe like still a long ways to go. And it's interesting though, because we are having those conversations. We actually think the 37% gap that remains, our hypothesis is a lot of it is actually not deforestation alerts. It's actually because we don't have the clear TTP data that is being shared, and that can be for a variety of reasons. So now we're continuing to identify ways of working with our suppliers. How do we get access to that TTP level data, provide evidence sharing so that all of us are spending less time on just arguing whether this is, hey, this isn't a deforestation alert, but we can't quite provide you the why, versus actually spending time on true deforestation alerts where we do want to work with supply chain actors to recover, restore, reforest areas. And then lastly, I think this just continues to be an interesting space of the balancing lagging versus future view. I think for all of us, especially further upstream in the supply chain, downstream in the supply chain, we're always receiving lagging data, mill lists that were there from before, like our H2 2023 palm oil mill list. So now it continues to be, how do we try to match what our current supply chain looks like versus what actions we want to take to, again, just continue to evolve and be more agile. So a lot to go. We have some great progress being made. As was alluded to, we did just last year expand our partnership with Earthworm and the Airbus team to do Starling monitoring across other commodities such as our cocoa supply chain and pulp paper. And so that continues to be a work in progress as we expand and bring ourselves along in those supply chains. So I will stop and looking forward to hearing if there are any questions or comments from folks as we go.
Thanks a lot, Molly. Appreciated. So there's been indeed quite a lot of questions. Just before we switch to this part, I will maybe give a final word to Elizabeth and Nadja if you want to give final comments.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your really interesting talks. So if I were to give a word of conclusion, specifically for companies that are currently scrambling to find answers to the European regulation that is upcoming, so the EUDR, one message would be that, yes, it is urgent, but there are solutions that exist out there, Starling being one of them, for no deforestation verification in its generality to ensure compliance with the EUDR. Of course, we're always trying to keep up to date with the European Commission, all of the various changes in the legislation, how it will go along. Also in the long term, if and when other commodities might be included in this legislation, or if other countries, other regions pick up some similar regulations, or in general give a sudden push for no deforestation verification worldwide. So we also, as I said right at the beginning, we also work on different types of carbon accounting and removal projects to help companies that are looking towards SBTI, GHG protocol, etc. So bringing this primary data using Starling, understanding land use conversion, having the ability to go back over 2 decades of satellite imagery is really crucial for a range of different challenges. In the future, we're looking to grow Starling, we're looking to cover more commodities, cover more areas, increase constantly and develop to help as many companies as possible reach their sustainability targets, whether no deforestation, carbon accounting, or others. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. On your side, Nadja?
Thank you, Elizabeth. So on my side, just to complement a bit what Elizabeth has said, so we are really here to support you. I mean, this is our main message. We always work hand in hand with the customer and the Starling user, and we know that many changes are coming with the new EU regulation, but we are here to work closely with you to try to understand your needs, understand what you would like to do, and here to bring support, really. So do not hesitate to contact us for any doubts. We are here for that. And I will just leave the floor to the questions so the audience have a bit of time as well to ask the questions. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you, Nadja. There's been quite a lot of questions. I'll try to group them by theme. First, maybe some questions around the satellite imagery part and the remote sensing aspect of the Starling service. This is one question about which data source we're using for our forest, our land cover and our forest mask. If you want to take that question, then I can complement if you want after that.
Yeah, of course. So when it comes to forest cover, and I assume you're talking about the base map that I was showing before. So we create our own base maps. We use data from various sources of satellite imagery. So from sources such as Sentinel satellites, so the European Union satellites, and we complement them with other satellite imagery, including Airbus's satellite imagery. So Airbus has a range of various satellites with different resolutions, as I was showing Pleiad, for example, to contextualize deforestations in areas where the land cover can be quite complex. So having this ability to bring together as much information as possible enables us to create our own base maps, our own understanding of the land cover with the definitions of the EUDR, and to ensure an accurate base map, because an accurate base map is the key to proper deforestation and forest degradation alerts. So to sum up, we do our own.
And the main advantage of those Sentinel-2 images is that first they're available across the entire span of the regions that we need to cover. And they're high definition enough so that we can map any object that is above half an hectare, which is the requirement given by the EUDR. So that's another key reason why we integrate this imagery into our service. But then, as Elizabeth alluded to, we are also using VHR imagery to train our algorithms to detect what is forest, what is not forest. There is another question actually on the primary forest. About the fact that EUDR is using this terminology of primary forest. So the question is, can we map the primary forest in Starling? So I would say the answer is yes. Forest is a generic term. There are many subclasses beneath that term. So we have actually adapted our forest masks to meet with the EUDR definitions and to be able to detect all the conversion classes that are expected from the EUDR. So beneath forest, you will find primary forest, naturally regenerated forest, plantation forest, and being able to distinguish those classes is what allows them to say that there's been either a degradation or a deforestation. I hope this answers the question, and if you need more details on how we're able to extract that information from satellite imagery, we may not have time to deep into the topic, but we're using an internal proprietary software called Overland, which extracts biophysical parameters from the imagery, and that's really unique, and that what gives us the certainty of what we observe, independently from the viewing angle, the lighting conditions, or the sensor that we're using. So we were quite independent from all of that. Okay, now maybe moving on to, there was another question. I will move on to maybe a question to you, Molly. I think someone noticed the focus that you currently have on tracking and monitoring your suppliers, and they would like to know a bit more about how you're currently engaging your suppliers with regards to the challenges that you explain, and maybe also what areas you see as improvement for the next months and years.
Yeah, so we engage our suppliers actively, and that's sort of vague, I suppose, but as sort of throughout the course of normal business, we are engaging with our suppliers. I often engage with sort of my sustainability counterparts within our Palm suppliers business. And so that's often when we see if there's grievance allegations coming in around deforestation alerts, there's engagement in that way. Still, as it relates to Starling, I will have some back and forth, but as I did mention, we've actually now moved towards a more formal engagement where Earthworm and the Starling, and our supplier partners are doing more direct back and forth engagement, just because, and we'll stay involved and we're aware of those conversations, but making sure we're not creating an extra link in the chain to slow conversations down. So I would say the broader areas of improvement are twofold. One is just making sure we're all aligned on methodology and reporting. We are still understanding that some of our suppliers might have different definitions of traceability to plantation, TTP, than what Hershey has in place, which very much is actually just aligned to what the Earthworm team has put in place as part of their broader methodology. So that continues to be tricky if a supplier indicates they have TTP, but we're saying, no, this is actually what we're looking for. And then also just the sharing of traceability and supply chain data, whether it's because maybe that is still, exactly as Renzo talked about, maybe still not available, or we still understand there are confidentiality agreements, NDAs in place that sometimes make it difficult to share. So I'd say those are the broader areas. But if there's more questions around actual TTP, maybe best if down the road, Nadia can take that one.
I can just complement a bit quickly, David, because I saw the question as well. What is TTP? So just for information, TTP means traceability to plantation. I saw the question as well. And yes, we are always, we do work under Starling with traceability to plantation information that we have publicly as well. So sometime where there are some gaps in terms of traceability, we can use the public data to basically fill the gap if you want to. Yeah, I think if there's more question on this, definitely I can address that after.
There was a question on maybe more to Renzo, but I think you could also help answering this one about, is there any aspects of geospatial information in your current supply chain at Cocoasource that you see any current gap? So I think it also reverts back to traceability challenges.
Yeah, definitely. Like I was mentioning a bit before, the level of maturity and progress in creating this detailed geospatial information for our supply chain, it's really different. It depends. There are some origins where we have very, very detailed information, and we've had it already for many years. And I think why that is because, and maybe it's something important to highlight, is that, we're talking a lot about compliance and EUDR. But I think it's really important to remember that we shouldn't be doing this just for compliance. It's because, the reality is that the businesses of cocoa, of chocolate, of coffee, of rubber, and our consumption behavior as consumers, it all has impact on forest. So we have a real obligation, I'd say, to understand what are these impacts. And there are clients like chocolatiers that are really moving in this direction, kind of really going beyond just compliance. And so we've been working with some of these for some time now and proactively creating that traceability information. So the reality is that in some cases, there's been a demand already to really get deep and create this polygon information. And in some other cases, and this is where I think regulation is really helpful, is that we got to really roll up sleeves and start creating this visibility, because there's certainly still are gaps, but we have no other choice basically to close those gaps as soon as possible.
If I can complete as well here a bit, David, just to complete as well a bit, Renzo. So on our side, under EarthSome, we have as well a traceability team that works on traceability, where we are able as well with a real template on how to provide information, how to structure information, to share this template with the suppliers where we are missing information, and together with the customers, such as Molly was saying, we are there pushing, doing some follow-up calls, really addressing them to make sure that they're able to provide the data in a correct way. So this supply engagement work as well helps to get more information in terms of traceability.
Thank you. Questions are really flowing in. I'll try to follow the pace. Maybe questions on our side about Starling coverage. So does Starling have global coverage? So we may need to explain depending on the commodities.
Do you want me to go on to that one?
Yeah.
So regarding global coverage, so Starling, the basis of Starling is satellite imagery. Our satellite imagery is able to cover the entire world, so globally. When it comes to the creation of base maps and Starling monitoring as it is, we currently cover 100% of palm oil regions, as well as the key cocoa, coffee regions, as well as many others. And of course, as I said, since satellite imagery does not discriminate on regions of the world, and satellites are constantly going around our planet, we are adding new areas constantly. We are creating new base maps based on demand. So there is no region of the world that we cannot map if required.
And we're also able to integrate external data sets if, for example, an area is not yet covered, but it is an emergency or an urgent need for a customer. So we can accommodate integration of additional data sets so that we can respond to any need. There was one question on One Atlas, whether it was included in or not. It is included. So it's one of the layers that we provide in the platform. So this is always available, and that allows you also to get access to more evidence regarding the landscape change that you can have. Just browsing through. So there was one question on which system of field verification Starling uses to be sure that there are true deforestations. Maybe one comment from my side, we're using very high resolution imagery to check on the alerts that's been raised by the system to remove false negative or false positive. So there's a systematic accuracy assessment. We can also activate Earthworm Foundation if there needs to be boots on the ground for specific purposes. Maybe Nadja, I can let you elaborate a bit more on that part.
Sorry, David, can you just repeat the last part? I didn't get it, sorry.
Yeah, so the question is basically the verification part in the Starling service. How do we ensure that they are true deforestation? So I addressed the verification that we do on our side regarding alerts that are raised by the system using very high resolution imagery to check false positive or false negatives. But also it's an opportunity for you to explain the local presence that you have and what you can do in the country.
Thank you. I didn't get just the final. Perfect. Thank you. Yes, exactly. So as we have a presence within the 5 continents, basically, with local people really on the ground, we are able as well to do some ground checking. Sometimes that can happen, but we have as well the information from other public data available as well to make sure that the data we are using and to make sure that the deforestation that we have flagged is effective and is happening.
Thank you, Nadja. There are too many questions for the time remaining. We'll commit ourselves to provide answers per email to anyone who's raised a question. Maybe a tricky question for you, Elizabeth, on pricing. How do we address pricing on Starling for different types of needs?
Okay, so I'll speak for the satellite, so the access to Starling platform, etc. So how we do our pricing system is based on origin, but mostly based on volume. So we created a pricing based on volume, so tons of palm oil, etc. This is because we wanted to make a pricing that was fair for different actors in different areas of the supply chain, so that an extremely large company sourcing thousands of tons all across the world does not have the same pricing as a small company, an SME, etc. So it is based on the volume source or estimations of volume source.
So we try to be flexible to work at cooperative level as well as large companies that have vast supply chains.
Yeah, exactly. To understand the realities of supply chains and what's going on and the different needs, obviously, of different companies. While some will just want a hands-on being able to navigate up and down their supply chain aspect, some others would rather have access to reports, more of a a guidance aspect. So obviously we take all of this into account. Starling is not just an off-the-shelf solution as you would buy a pair of shoes. It is always customizable and adaptable to the various needs of each customer.
Thank you. Big thank you to our speakers, Renzo, Molly, Naja, Elizabeth. Thanks for joining and sharing your insights. A big thank you to all the people who joined this webinar. Appreciated all the questions that were raised. Obviously, there's more that we can address right now, but as I said, we'll get back to you on those points. So a big thank you on my side, and I hope we can reconnect soon. Thank you all, and have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Renzo.
Many thanks to everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.